Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I'm very pleased to have with me Steve Cadigan. And let me tell you about Steve. He is a top talented strategist, leadership expert with over 30 plus years of experience. He famously led LinkedIn's early hyper-growth phase as its first CHRO, building its world-class company culture from scratch and scaling the organization from 400 to 4,000 employees in 3 to 5 years. As one of the most provocative global thought leaders on the future of work, Steve is hired not only by Fortune 500 companies, but by entire countries to help them navigate the talent landscape. His clientele spans all the way from Google, X, Slack, BBC, and Intel to the city of Lisbon, which hired him to develop a startup incubator unicorn factory. His award-winning book, Workquake, is considered a game changer for leaders and organizations on the future of work in a post-COVID world. He has also written for Forbes and Inc., will soon be writing for Business Insider, and frequently appears on Bloomberg and CNBC to talk about evolving nature of work. He is regularly asked for advice on by legacy institutions like Harvard, as well as top VCs and management firms, including Accenture, Deloitte, and McKinsey, and today sits on the board of 3 corporations. So, I always talk about leading and my love for changing the way people lead today. So we're going to talk about leading with trust in the new world at work. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Steve Cadigan. Steve, so excited to have this conversation today.
Thanks for having me, Vicki.
So we always start out with 2 easy questions. The first is just tell everybody, what part of the country do you live in? Where do you call home right now?
I call California home today, Southern California. I'm in San Diego.
I love San Diego. Those that listen to me regularly know I spent a good bit of time launching the UPS store in the US and Canada. And San Diego was our home base for MBE, which became the UPS store. So very
Nice.
cool. Love that area. Probably, I guess I spent 2 weeks a month there
Nice.
for 4 years.
Well, we're redoing the airport now, so come back in after October. It should be a lot easier to get here.
For sure. So the second question is, we told all these wonderful things that you've accomplished, what you're doing today and how you are this subject matter expert. But I love for you always to share the journey so people understand that it wasn't a straight path, that there were pivots, there were situations that we call them opportunities for you to grow. And so perhaps overcoming some of those challenges, but each of those things really informed who you are, why you do what you do today.
Sure. And that's always the problem when you have those sort of, let's embellish on my background to give me credibility, because there are so many mistakes, failures, shortfalls, lessons learned along the way that I think built the confidence that I was able to bring over time. I think my journey started when my parents moved me and my older sister to South Africa when I was 2 years old.
Oh, wow.
And for the next 5 years, grew up in South Africa. My younger sister and brother were born, and we jokingly refer to them as African Americans, which usually gets a reaction. They were both born there, and then we were kicked out by the apartheid government in 1970 and had to matriculate back to the U.S. So at 7 years old, I started school first grade in the U.S. My sister tested up and I tested down, so she got third grade and I got first grade.
Wow.
And I was teased relentlessly because I had a very strong South African accent, which I can pull out at cocktail parties if I need to. But it forced me at a very young age to learn what you want to do as a child, which is you really want to adapt and you want to fit in. And my dad was a minister, my mom was a social worker, so we, settled into this working class town on the border of Connecticut, New York, and I grew up there. And I think that was such a impressionable experience. I don't think it was cognitive. I don't think I was aware of how big an adaptation challenge that was for me. But my mom would say, I would stay up late at night crying about how I didn't want to go to school because I was being teased. And my sister and I would stay up late at night practicing American so that we could try to fit in.
Assimilate.
And so roll the tape forward, finished high school, finished university. I really had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I really didn't. I was a history major. I loved history. That's why I majored in it. I had no practical thinking around school. Major equates to some sort of career path. My parents were really strong about just get a liberal arts education and figure it out, And they were right. I stumbled 1 year into my first job at a fashion company. I was a collector. About a year into that, I was really good at collecting money, by the way. And but I looked at that career path. I'm like, I don't want to be in finance my whole life. Like, this is not for me. And someone in human resources saw me and said, do you want to come down and do recruiting? And I'm like, well, what's that? And they said, well, you interview people and match them with teams and bosses. And I said, wait a second, you're going to pay me to do that? Like, that sounds like so much fun. And here I am at 23, and I fell in love with the world of human resources and talent. I got really, really lucky. And so over the course of the next 20 years, I worked in 6 different industries. And probably the biggest flip for me was about 10 years in, I joined a high-tech company. And that dynamism of quick decision-making and creativity and openness to new ideas was so counter to the insurance company that I was working for.
Oh, yeah.
Or I'm not kidding. We used to have a meeting to decide who's going to come to the meeting. Okay.
I believe so.
And I joined Advanced Micro Devices. We would meet in the hallway, have a meeting, make the decision, and then go back to our cubes and implement it. I said, this is for me. And so I also found, I was very lucky to find that I'm a big sports fan and I'm an athlete and I love the environments of competition. And I found that those skills were really valuable to me in trying to decide, like, how does that person handle pressure? How does that person handle this kind of boss? How does that person handle, working on a big team or a small team? Where do they do their best work? And what kinds of leaders match best with what kinds of players or employees? And so that led me more and more into organizational thinking and org design. And I loved it. And I was pretty good at it. So I think it was probably my mid-30s. I said, I want to get a master's in this. I want to be great at it. And so I got a master's at the University of San Francisco. And, over the course of my career, I've had a chance to live in Singapore for 2 years, which was just a head explosion. I'm still recovering from the shock of everything being different. And if you are an American, you've never worked in another country, it's probably the greatest thing I ever did for myself, because it's not just how you work that's different. It's what you eat, what you smell, what you hear, what you see, how you communicate. For me, my skill of reading body language was useless in Asia, completely useless.
Yeah.
And it's a different kind of language. The body language is radically different. The customs and norms from one country to the next are so different that, after 2 years, I was still, maybe I moved from beginner to novice, but I was nowhere near competent. And I wanted to stay in Singapore, but the company I was with said, no, you got to come back to expensive land. California. So that ended. And then I moved to Canada for 4 years, and I was in British Columbia. And that was an incredible experience for me. I probably have never been more content work and life as I was living in Western Canada. I just think these people are my people. How is that possible? Like I've never lived here. I don't know any Canadians. And I felt more at home than anywhere I'd ever worked. And that was post the dot-com bubble bursting. So I was in a tech company and it was brutal because, everyone had been worth so much money and then the share prices went down low. And so that was really hard work getting people motivated. So, roll the tape forward. I came back to the US and knock on the door one day. And here's LinkedIn, a startup company saying, would you be our first chief HR officer? And I'm like, what do you guys do? Like I'd never heard of the company.
How do you make money?
That's right. I was like, this seems very kind of sketch to me. My parents were like, stay with the big companies. And I was so ready for a change, Vicki. I worked in the big companies and I'd made a lot of mistakes and I was doing fine, but I thought, this isn't a startup. They're only 6 years old. They were still pretty big. I mean, 400 people. They'd never had a human resource full-time employee. They'd only had contractors doing recruiting. And I thought, maybe this is the opportunity to build something and apply all the lessons and mistakes and things I've seen about leadership that didn't work. And this is the sad truth for a lot of leaders I talk to. We learn more how not to lead from the bosses
That's
we had
absolutely true.
than we do how to lead. And so I'm going to apply those here. And that was the beginning of an adventure. So I rode the company, you read it in the intro, from 400 to 4,000, from 2 offices to 26, from 2 countries to 17 countries of employees. We went through the IPO. I'm still going through PTSD right now. That was 4 years that felt like 20. And it was very, very, very hard. Nothing prepared me for that. Like when you're at a big company, you're fixing and tuning and shaping what people did before you. And when you go to a place where there's no roads, there's no binders of policies or practices, and you've got to build it from nothing, it's very humbling. But it's also incredibly valuable for you to basically, it's like rebuilding an engine. Like, why do we have this component here? Why do we do it there? Like, how many levels should we have? How often should we review performance? Should we review performance? And what do we value in rewards? Should we have a big bonus and a low salary, or a high salary, low bonus? Like, what do we want to do? And so I'd never done that before. So I turned from, I thought I would know how to do it. I didn't. So I had to surround myself with people who'd been down this path before. But that was incredible, but incredibly exhausting. And I was the only executive at LinkedIn that had 3 young kids. And so I think I woke up one day and said, I don't think I've got this in me anymore. I need to slow it down. And the company had done so well, thankfully, that I could retire if I wanted to. Thank you, LinkedIn shareholders who are listening in right now, for your support, users. And so I took a step back. I regained my footing as a parent and a dad. My marriage didn't survive that, unfortunately. And that's an oversimplified story there. Every relationship is very complex. And so I found myself what I thought was the top of the career mountain, divorced, trying to be a single parent, raising 3 young kids, preteens, and started to rebuild. And that's been the story for the last 12 years. I've been on my own, helping leaders and organizations around the world let's do it better. Let's build better companies and better talent strategies.
Well, it's kind of like me after retiring. I was like, I don't see people getting mentored and guided. Everybody's trying to survive COVID and trying to, cut budget. And first thing that goes is training. And it's a different thing. You can't just take this being operational minded and be a great leader. You really have a different skill set.
Yeah. And
So
that's, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wanted to talk then, about the culture, how important that is, and the audience is entrepreneurs, that there may be some people that are in business, big corporations, and are trying to get ahead, but, majority of people out there are doing just as you said. I might be starting a small team. What do I have as my culture and the vision and the core values and all those things that will make us survive?
Yeah, and it's such a huge category, and it's a good thing we've got 6 hours for this recording. Here's how I feel about culture. Skipping to the punchline of my LinkedIn adventure, we were able to build that company in the shadows of Google, Apple, and Facebook, who could outpay us, out benefit us, out perk us, out work environment us, out childcare center on site us, out sushi chef, out Lady Gaga's coming to give a concert just for our employees us. And we were able to out recruit them, I think attract better talent than them over time because we realized that the only asset we had cost us nothing. And that was building an amazing place where people could create magic. And that's just a commitment. And I will not tell you, or I can't, there's no way that I would be authentic if I told you, oh, that was our master plan. It wasn't. We tried everything. We tried, so many different ways of recruiting. And we're a recruiting company whose main product was recruiting, and we were failing on recruiting, which is why I have all this gray hair for those of you who can't see me on the video. But that was a very stressful time. And so it really forced us, like a lot of you right now are saying, well, why would someone want to work for me when they can make more money over there, or that place has got, more retirement, 401k match or whatever. You can do it. And the reason we did it was because we kind of had no alternative. We're sort of sitting there getting slaughtered in the recruiting for talent in Silicon Valley. And we knew because we were, being paid by our competitors for talent to help them recruit. And we could see all their hiring and all that stuff and how many recruiters they had to us and so forth. And so finally we said, the only way we're going to do this is if we become a place where the best people find us versus us going out and hunting people. And so that's what culture is. Culture is building an environment where the best people find you. And that can look so different depending upon the sensibilities of you and your leadership team, like what's important to you. And so lesson number one that I will share is if you don't think culture is valuable, please don't tell your people that you do. Because if you tell them you think it's valuable and you really don't, and then you start doing all the things you told them to do, you do it differently, you just created a bigger hole than if you never said, I love culture, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not feeling it, take the time to sort of, explore whether that's something that's important to you or not. If it's not, then great, it's not. But if it is, then really, so many people define culture different ways. For me, it's sort of like what environments and platforms can we provide that people can have great career experiences here, like great, whether they're here a year or 20, however that lines up. And so that's what we committed to. Come here and we will make this the greatest learning experience of your entire career journey. We can't promise we're going to make you richer than Google, who's next door. And if, by the way, if that's important to you, we'll help you find a job over there if that's really important to you. But the problem we're solving, helping people find their dream jobs, we think is really, really valuable and really worthy of you and your time and your energy. And so, would you like to join us? And once we got clarity, like, why would someone want to work for us? That's such a great question. And here I was, 25 years into my career journey. No one ever asked me, or I was never in a leadership meeting where someone said, well, why would anyone want to work here? Because we always thought, oh, it's because we're nice. We like people. We treat people well. We've got good investors and good leadership. We reward people fairly. And we've got beer on Fridays. And all people hear is blah, 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 beer Fridays, because everyone says the same thing. And when we were failing at recruiting, we had to really get laser focused. And that was the question, why would anyone want to work here, that changed the game. And when you answer that question, you have to inevitably ask the question, what assets do we have that no one else has? Like, and I'm telling you, if you're not recruited in Silicon Valley, you don't know what a knife alley fight looks like in darkness for recruiting people, because there are incredibly well-equipped adversaries there. And that really forced our hand to really, be very thoughtful on that. So I love that question, because for me, I was walking around one day, about a year after we figured this out at LinkedIn. I was walking around campus with the CEO, and it was one of these days where we let the employees do whatever they want. It was sort of a volunteer day. And he looked at me and he said, Steve, I never thought culture would be the reason that we turned this company around. He never thought that. And he was a very smart CEO, very successful. And even he was a skeptic, until he saw, and it wasn't because I was smart. It was because as a company, as a leadership team, we got to figure this out, man. We got to be a good company or we're going to get hammered. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you say, the leaders have to believe it, because it's true. People can smell when it's not authentic, and there's too much out there. There's too many people looking for people for you to just assume that they're going to stay just because of your name.
That's right. The days of you work here, or you're lucky to have a job here, are long over. And you bring up a really great point, Vicki, which is different from when I started my career journey, looking in a newspaper for what jobs were open that were only included the ones in my town, right? We didn't have the internet. I didn't have newspapers from other cities around the world. And so your lens is very, very narrow. And today we have more visibility to opportunity than any time in the history of work. We have more new industries, more new career paths because of a new industry being born every day more than any time in history. And that is fundamentally exciting for
It
our
is.
children and fundamentally scary as an employer because your talent can see more places where they can go. Oh, and they can also see how fairly those people are getting paid, what the culture is like, what the benefits are like, what the turnover is like, what the leadership style is like. You have so much information now that it's causing what the Wall Street Journal said recently. It's causing career paralysis. People are like, I don't know where to go because there's so much to choose from, right?
I call it the IKEA effect.
Yeah.
If those of you that ever gone into IKEA, it's like there's so many cool things. Then
Yeah.
I often walk out with nothing because I just don't know what I want to buy. Um,
Yeah. I have the
so let's
opposite problem. I come out with all these things I wasn't expecting to buy.
I want to talk a little bit about your book, Workquake.
Yeah.
And it challenges the status quo of how we work. And what one truth, what do you say is one truth about work that leaders urgently need to unlearn?
That the only teams that win are the ones that stay together the longest. That is just not true anymore. We have so many creative, innovative companies where the median tenure is 3-4 years. And in fact, there's mounting evidence that the more new ideas, new perspectives, new ways of solving problems that you have, the better your ability to navigate an uncertain and unpredictable world of work. So that's one, like, please look at that the opposite way. And that's hard because that's all we've been taught is, this muscle memory and trust that builds over time. That's important. It's not that it's not important, but when our business is changing quickly and we've got to pivot, I need people who've been in different places that can inform me about how to handle a turn in the road that I see is coming that I've never seen before. And if everyone's here and they've never been somewhere else, they don't know how to handle that. And the greatest example of that is an overused benchmark, but I'm sorry, it's a really good one. And that's the automobile industry. The most valuable company right now is not the one that's been around for 100 years. It's not the one that's figured out all the policies and practices and automation procedures. It's the one that's less than 25 years old who's run by a crazy man who's got 5 part-time jobs. It's Tesla. And you could argue, and by the way, for those who are, investors, Tesla is worth more today than Ford, Honda, Toyota, General Motors, Mercedes, and BMW combined. And so when I ask leaders from traditional enterprises, what do you think the investors see in Tesla that they don't see in the companies that have been doing it for a century? Why are they putting their money there? The answer is always pretty similar. It's because they think Tesla can innovate. They're not stuck in 100 years of doing it this way or that way, right? And if you don't believe me, go watch the Ford versus Ferrari scene where Carroll Shelby's in Mr. Ford's office and he goes, see that folder you're holding, Mr. Ford? That touched 15 hands before it touched yours. We're not going to win the race that way,
That's right.
And that's such a good omen.
And that's a great point for people to think about. When I was a project manager for UPS for a long time, and one of my projects was to just look at the hiring process for sales and where was it broken? And it was broken precisely from what you said. So many people had to sign off on hiring somebody, including all the way to the top, and which is ridiculous. And so then you had people that were waiting and waiting, good people, talented people that were waiting to find out if they were approved, that they just went somewhere else.
Yeah. Yep. I know. And that's a big lesson, I think. There's another lesson, Vicki, which I would be remiss if I didn't mention from the LinkedIn days. And that was, we made a big bunch of hiring mistakes in the early days. When we started to gain traction, okay, we started to say, hey, we're going to be a big company. You're like, well, let's go hire some people who've led big companies to show us the way. Cause have you ever led $1 billion business? Have you ever like, no, we don't know how to do that. And so we hired a few leaders who'd run $1 billion businesses, and they flamed out like in a matter of months. And we're like, what did we do wrong? Like we do bet. And they're like, they said, I ran $1 billion business. I didn't build $1 billion business. And when you're building, you need builders. You need people who operate in crazy and can bring some, continuity and some discipline out of crazy. And that's really, really important. The other thing that I think contributed to our success at LinkedIn, and I hope this inspires everyone who's on the entrepreneurial journey right now, is that if you were to look at the CVs and the profiles of every one of our leadership team when we filed to go public, there's no way you would say, oh, this is a complete layup, easy. These guys are going to be a home run, no problem. We had a first-time CEO. We had a CFO who'd never taken a company public before, and every single leader in our company was managing more people than at any time in our respective careers. We had no business becoming as successful as we were based on our prior track record. Okay. So don't feel, number one, don't feel you have to go out and hire people who've done it before, because sometimes not doing it gives you creative license and it doesn't bind your thinking.
You don't know what you don't know.
Correct. And you don't know you're not supposed to do this or that. And the second thing is, you don't have to have been world-class to be world-class. Sometimes being hungry is worth a lot. And that's, I think we didn't agree on a lot on everything as a leadership team, but we did agree we want this to be an incredible company, and what that looked like and what that meant to a lot of us was different, but like, we want to be one of the best companies ever. And that was really a motivator for us, so, and that's sort of like, so don't put all this pressure that you got to surround yourself with people who've been to the, the holy land of entrepreneurial, nirvana. You can build it and you can get it done. And that hunger is worth a lot.
So our theme is about trust, and in a world where trust really is currency, and you can really look at the diversity, that the international environment aspect, the diversity that we have now in our companies. So you have to not only to take into account the personal behavior and all, but really culturally impacts, and you have hybrid, we have remote. How can leaders internationally build trust when you've got these people that are in front of you on camera, people you might not see except once a quarter? How do you build that trust?
I think you're going to have to do some experimentation for sure. We have not built a generation of outstanding remote team leaders yet. We built some really great in-person team leaders, and that's, I don't know a single business school that's crushing it, teaching how to, lead people remotely right now. We're making the sausage as we go. But I think this notion of trust, and that's why I'm so excited that that's kind of like our grounding, framework for this conversation. If you believe the world of work is going to continue to be a little bit crazy, the way you optimize for performance in a world where things are a bit unpredictable is you be intentional around building a trust strategy. And so what does that look like? That looks like lots of in-person communications, whether it's on video or in person, fewer emails, fewer, typed messages to people, more forums for people to ask questions, lots of surveys, lots of feedback, lots of opportunities to thank and invite the elephant in the room questions. I think transparency is really important. I mean, trust is under attack pretty much everywhere in this country right now. Forget just the corporate, and business world. And we got all these, what is the truth and what is that? I think if you can build these practices that make people feel like I can do my best work, I can make a mistake and not be crucified, that's going to really benefit you. I work in so many companies, and I go in and I'm briefed by the senior management, and they say, oh yeah, we're all about, taking risks and, fail first. And then I go meet the middle leaders and they're like, no, no,
No.
you go first. I don't believe them, and so
Um,
we got a lot of work to do there, and very few companies are intentional on, we need a trust strategy here. Like, how can we do it? And how do we know that's there? I almost think measuring trust is more important than measuring employee engagement, because so many
mm,
things are affecting employee engagement right now that's out of a company's control. Like, give you a little window into my life right now. My father is not in good health right now. He's not. People are living longer, and all of us collectively are caring for elders in our families longer, with
mm,
which is presenting us with new challenges we've never faced before, and new dynamics with my siblings around who's helping and who's not helping, and things
mm,
like that. And that's distracting my engagement in my work, and it's really important to me. And so, how do I make that all work? Is I got to feel that my management, my company, has my back, and they trust that I have the best of
exactly.
intentions. And there's a margin of, understanding that if I got a family stuff to, it's not trivial, it's serious.
Mhm.
And that's really, really important. And when do you really know whether you have a trust strategy? Is when something goes wrong and you see how leaders handle it. That's when
Mhm.
trust is made or broken. And that's why the
Mhm.
pandemic, like you were saying earlier, it's like the ultimate leadership test of our lifetimes. Here we
Mhm.
see some companies going out there to try to take advantage and make a profit at the expense of people whose chips are down. And then you see these other ones that are like, hey, have our trucks, have our supply chain, have our, we're going to make respirators, we're going to cobble them together to save this country. Oh, and do you
Mhm.
need toilet paper? Because that's apparently a big crisis in this country. We got your toilet paper. Like that's when you see what leaders are made of. And we saw all kinds of crazy. And so
Mhm.
it's hard to build trust, but those crazy moments are opportunities, for you to
Yeah.
really shine. And that's why, I've had so many leaders face something that went wrong in the company, whether they made a mistake or someone made a mistake, or, I'll take LinkedIn, for example. We got hacked by some Russian hackers, we think, 4 million passwords stolen. Okay. We all thought the CEO was just going to blow his lid. And he got in front of the employees and said, this is my fault. I should have been more thoughtful around putting some better security practices in place. Let's use this as a learning opportunity. He went back to his desk, and I followed him. We were talking about some other meeting we had coming up. And he goes, oh my God, oh my God. I go, what? He goes, I've just got more. I'm so proud to be at this company emails than I've ever seen because of this disaster and how I handled it. I'm like, you just build trust, man. You just build trust. And that
Mhm.
was a beautiful thing. And a lot of times leaders don't see it that way. They say, oh, it's my moment. I better be perfect. I have to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
infallible. And it's not possible. Those moments are
No,
great for you to build trust, right?
absolutely. I always say that perfect is boring. And it's really a goal you just shouldn't even be trying to achieve. You should do your best, but saying it, I'm going to be perfect is just not going to happen. And I
Right.
think the more times that you show everyone that you're human, that you can make mistakes too, and how you own up to them is leading by example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%. 100%.
Well, time has flown by. And I'm sure that we should have a follow-up conversation so we can continue
Great.
this conversation. But for those that are watching now for part one, you want to have a contact information. As always, I do have a slide to share. Those that are listening, I will read the information. You can find everything on my Vicki Nethling YouTube channel. Please do subscribe. Or you can go to findyourleadershipconfidence.com website and you can subscribe there, but everything will be in the show notes. All right, so the website is his name, Steve Cadigan, CADIGAN.com, stevecadigan.com. His LinkedIn is just the last name, so Cadigan. Go on LinkedIn and search Cadigan. You can see there his book. I'm going to turn it over now to talk to Steve about his call to action today, what you find on his website, as well as that LinkedIn page.
Yeah, thank you again, Vicki, for having me, and thank you for being a voice of confidence in this very, very complex world that we live in. If you want to reach me, you could send me an email at steve@cadiganventures.com. You can go to my website, stevecadigan.com. My book, Workquake, you can find anywhere. If a bookstore doesn't have it, just ask them to order it, or you can go to the big, Amazon.com. They've got plenty of copies there. And if there's something that's interesting to you, I post pretty regularly on LinkedIn, and I'm very active. I'm on it every day. So if you send me an email or a question or a comment, I will respond to you very, very quickly. So I appreciate the thoughts and ideas that you have. And I'm always looking for companies that are doing interesting things in the future of work, so I can share that with other people. So if you've got some things you guys are doing or you've seen others do, like some of the examples I gave in our conversation, please let me know.
Fantastic. Steve, again, thank you so much for this excellent conversation we've had about trust in the new world of work. And I for sure will have you back so we can continue this on. I have a ton of other things that I think would be interesting for us to continue this conversation. But as always, thank you so much for being a great guest. And I remind you every time that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.